Which measure will best address our city's long-term financial problems and why? And Michela, would you like to take this first? Thank you, Bevan.
Thank you. Let me start by saying I was very glad to see that Mayor Lee joined the group that had been formed. But I think we need to be very clear about something. When Jeff Adachi put his ballot measure on last year, it was Supervisor Sean Ellsburn and a group of labor leaders who got together to try and reform the system and to put something on the ballot that we could support and something that we could vote on. That became the consensus measure that is before us today. With all due respect to Mayor Lee, I think he was in the right place at the right time. But as we move forward, the consensus measure that is before us today is something that came together with cops and fire. And for a city like San Francisco that is built 8 miles from the Hayward Fault, we have to bear in mind that we have our first responders to rely on in case of emergencies. And so we can't pass a pension measure without them, not on them. We need them in the process, and they are there. And so I am supporting the consensus measure. I'd like to thank Supervisor Ellsburn for his leadership on pension reform over the last 5 years. And one thing I want to say about this race that we are in tonight, it is about innovation. It is about looking forward and what we can do for San Francisco. San Francisco is such a beautiful gem of a city, and it is something that we have always been known for. But we have to bear in mind that there are differences here. There's innovation, and there's a placeholder. We want to move forward. We don't want to move backward.
Thank you, Michela. And we'll go along the line anyway.
I actually want to echo some of Michela Alioto-Pier's comments about how the pension reform measure was drafted. It wasn't Mayor Ed Lee who put that on the ballot. It was a measure that was put on the ballot, I would say, with a great deal of support from public sector unions, who sacrificed a lot to get it on the ballot. And I think Mayor Lee was carrying out a vision that had been started before he came to office. That's what is concerned about Mayor Lee in the race, is whose vision is Mayor Ed Lee going to carry out. He has inherited a vision that has come from others before him. He talked about local hire as a big measure that he was going to support. That was something that I had drafted. And I really appreciate his work in carrying local hire out. He also helped he balance his budget using a process for balancing budget that I have used for years. Bringing many stakeholders together to the table to craft what our budget should look like, to decide what gets cut and what moves forward. I appreciate Mayor Ed Lee's work on the budget, but it's something that was pre-existing him as well. Mayor Ed Lee would not have been able to balance the budget if he did not have the resources that came when the voters approved the real estate transfer tax increase that I had authored last year. Over $50 million, and Mayor Lee would have had many services to balance the budget without that measure. So I do want to commend him for his work, but there was a lot of vision that came from other people to make it happen.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Chiu.
First of all, I want to echo the comments of my colleagues and give credit where credit is due. I want to also thank all the labor leaders, the business leaders, and particularly my colleague Sean Ellsburn, who for 7 years has been championing pension reform. And I also want to say there's another part to the problem that we need to address, and this has to do with general budget reform. Part of the issue that we've had in recent years, over the past 10 years, we've had structural budget deficits every single year. I'm proud that in 2009, with the help of many of my colleagues here, we asked you, the voters, to move forward an important budget reform measure that will be in place for our next mayor. Rather than balancing the budget over a 1-year period and kicking the problem down the road, which is exactly what our federal government has done, and we see where that has gotten us, we need to balance our budget over longer-term periods. And the measure that we passed in 2009 will require the next mayor for the first time to to balance the budget over a 2-year period, to do 5-year financial forecasting, and then the next time we come into a better economy, to save money in good times to spend for the next recession. This is important fiscal management. It is time to get our fiscal house in order. Thank you.
Thank you,
I support the consensus plan. I think it is more comprehensive in that it brings about some reform in the Health Services System Board. The next mayor is going to have to really focus on wellness. We're going to have to do what Kaiser and forward-thinking companies are doing, which is improving the healthiness of our employees. I can lose a few, and I'll tell you that the numbers are 30% of our city employees are significantly overweight, 30% of the children that are covered by our city health plan. And I think that things like Eric Marr's legislation, which I was proud to vote for, to address the fast food nation that we're fighting here in San Francisco, I think is the right thing. So I wholeheartedly support the consensus plan, and I will oppose Mr. Adachi's motion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the one issue that I will disagree with everybody on this stage on. Pension and health care reform is the #1 problem facing our city today. It's a $7 billion liability over the next 6 years. The comprehensive or so-called city family consensus program that Mayor Bentley signed was a program that was dictated by the unions that invalidated his own figures. 3 weeks before that signing, he said he needed a plan that would bring in $300 million a year. He signed a deal that's bringing in $60-70 million a year. Jeff Adachi's plan will bring in about $120 million a year, or save us about that. Now listen to this carefully. Jeff Adachi's plan does not address health care. I'm not supporting either one. There's only one plan that we can move forward with. One plan. We have to pay the price for past mayors that have lied to the civil service employees unions about benefits. We have to pay the bill. We have to have new hirees contribute at a third level of contributions that will pay off the unfunded liabilities over 10 to 15 years. Unfortunately, we're stuck because of the lies that have been put forth in the past. This comprehensive program is not a comprehensive program that was signed by the mayor. It kicks the can down the road, just like my commercial says.
Couple more questions here, ladies and gentlemen. Our next